Welcome back to the Michelle Halloween podcast. More music, dark music focused podcast for 2023, and we'll see how it goes. And the reason why I wanted to do more music focused stuff is because music is my everything. Music is what heals me, what inspires me. Music fucks me. Music makes me feel good. Sometimes it makes me feel like shit. Sometimes it makes me angry. And I really, really wanted to enjoy Black History Month as a Black woman this year.
Yes.
And highlight, not just highlight other Black artists that I love, but you are doing the work, Grey, as a trans woman, a person of color, you're POC, and yet you're not Black, but you are highlighting Black musicians, the foundations of Black artists, which, a lot of people, since it's Black History Month, the very end of Black History Month, but things continue beyond Black History Month. So, Grey, it's just really, really refreshing to see that you've highlighted Black artists on your amazing TikTok, Goth Auntie Grey's TikTok. Artists from the past, artists from now, because I'm noticing in this beautiful post-punk scene that there's more Black artists and Black people of color.
Yes.
Urban heat is taking off. Thank you for highlighting Black artists. Now, one of the ones that, we'll get into Poly Styrene and X-Ray Spex here in a little bit. But first I want to do is talk a little bit about Pretty Frankenstein, who you are, Grey, because those who are new to the show may not know who you are. You're fucking wonderful, multi-genre artist, Grey Starr of Pretty Frankenstein. Wait a minute.
We're putting up a little logo. Hey.
Okay, that's enough. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. I'm Grey Starr of Pretty Frankenstein. We are a dark wave goth alternative whatever the fuck band. If you like spooky stuff, if you like funky stuff, if you like goth stuff, if you like punk stuff, we kind of have everything in there. I just think that in the goth community, so with the series that you're talking about that I've been doing, where I've been talking about Black goth artists or alternative artists, I kind of towards the end of the month started switching it to hip hop artists, alternative hip hop artists that I felt like goths and alternative people could get into, because there's such a fucking stigma when it comes to hip hop music in the goth community, and I hate it. I hate the stigma. I hate all these old white goth men who don't give any fucking credit to so many artists, and they're just oh, I don't like hip hop music because it's all, and they always have some fucking outdated version of hip hop that they go by, in their head 50 Cent is new, and they're I don't really like people like 50 Cent and Lil Wayne, and it's well, most people that are into hip hop don't super fucking dig 50 Cent and Lil Wayne these days anyway, so even that's wrong. But it's just I'm so tired of the stigma with hip hop, and just the stigma with when people see a Black front person in an alternative band, and they're oh, that's weird, oh, you shouldn't be blah blah blah, and it's it
becomes this whole thing. Cinnamon Babe, we had discussed Cinnamon Babe, Stormy Maya, the new metal artist who is rising, not just because of the fact that she is screaming, she's gorgeous, she's a sex worker, she's done all these amazing things, who had this, to me, the more no, I'm trying not to give shade to Beyonce anymore, but seriously, for a weirdo and a weird person of color, Black woman, I'm so thrilled to have Stormy come out, but she is getting attacked by white people. I was attacked. I had a comment recently that had said, and I'll get to the hip hop thing too. I was wearing I had modeled a shirt from Cinnamon that said "Have Melanin," and some white guy came onto my comments talking about, she's wearing a Heavy Melanin shirt, and she's not even melanated, and I'm like, oh my god. And so the colorism is something that I put up with too, because I grew up, in predominantly Black and Latino community. Not a lot of white folk, but I listened to a lot of white music. I grew up being told that the music that I listened to was white, and Black people don't listen to that type of shit. So it is refreshing when I see a person of color, especially a Black person, on stage singing or belting lyrics like, again, I always have to talk about Urban Heat, but there are the older bands too. But there is the thing about hip hop that's another issue, because there's the gatekeepers. There's so many goth gatekeepers. And I didn't want to become an elder goth because I didn't want to be a gatekeeper when it comes to the music. And so it's just becoming very frustrating when we just want that representation even during Black Month. Highlight Black artists. Is it taking more time out of your fucking schedule? Is it making you lose followers? And this is something we do need to talk about. Is it making you lose followers? Hip hop is huge to me. Let's talk about Andre 3000 for a minute. Let's talk about, he's goth. To me, he's always been a goth. Will.i.am, fucking weird. Lauryn Hill even had some weird things. Erykah Badu. There's so many, and even though they're not hip hop, but they are put into that category. Yeah. And they've gotten shade for being awkward. So
like
Black people don't act like that. So it's so frustrating because white people see that.
For me, like one of the big like hip hop influences when I used to be in a hip hop group called Spirits in the Basement, and it was like we were like a bunch of like sad alternative like goth kids, and it was me, my friend Nam, who is a little Vietnamese kid, and then Judah J, Najee, Amaranth, and Quincy, who are all Black dudes with dreads. And there was such a stigma whenever we would perform or anything, whenever we would try to book shows at venues. This was like 2009, and like this was kind of like the end of hyphy shit in the Bay Area, or it was like coming to a close, and like all of the venues were like, oh, we can't have hip hop here anymore because there were shootings back in the day, and it's like that always like stuck with me, like how many venues were like pretty shitty about that. But like what was great for us around that time is there were artists that we were like, oh, these people are like us. Like we can really dig that. Like people like around then, Odd Future and Tyler, the Creator were like blowing, like just starting to blow up. And like, we were like watching that and we were like, oh, there's like this like super like goth, like horror kid who wears like nerdy Wes Anderson fucking t-shirts and pastel shorts, is like blowing up. This is like our kind of shit, So, that's one of those things where it's like, if I'm so thankful that I haven't gotten it on my TikToks, but I've seen a lot of people, they talk about alternative and goth music, and they mention somebody like Tyler, the Creator. And of course people will be like, oh, that's not goth and that's not blah, blah, blah. And it's like, not dude, like that dude's more fucking rock and roll than like any of the rock bands right now. So shut the fuck up, Right.
And thank you for reminding me about Tyler, the Creator. I forgot, like, and those are the things where it's like, I need, artists like yourself to project, because honestly, for me as a Black woman, it's my responsibility. A Black woman with privilege. It is my responsibility. I've taken it upon myself. I can't help it. It's just who I am, to use my platform to uplift and share the stories of other Black goths in the scene. And you know what I mean? Because even in my roughest times, music was my solace, and, listening to The Cure, not just for heartache, but just on rainy days for that romantic comfort. When I only discovered in the past 5 years that the original drummer from The Cure was black.
Yeah.
But back to hip hop. I'm sorry. I want to do a little bit more on hip hop a little bit because I do think it's important. I love hip hop, obviously, because I grew up with it. Yeah. And now that I'm noticing what my kids are listening to, it's not just mumble hip hop. It's actually taking on it's taking on a different form. It's not mumble, but it is depressing. We're not just talking about the inner city struggle that happens in the hood. We're talking about real life shit that is relatable, and it's goth. Because what is goth? If you are black, being black is goth. Yeah. I mean, hello. You can't, everyone black is goth because we're obsessed with black. Okay. I'm losing my focus again. I always do. I go on tangents and I go, totally but it's just, I don't get it, but I do want to see more hip hop played in goth clubs because I find myself, there's gatekeeping everywhere, but could you imagine playing even one of your songs from Pretty Frankenstein? Add that little hip hop element to it.
I mean, like I've done, like, I've been a DJ at at like goth events and stuff like that. And like, so when I have DJ Pro set up, I have my, separate playlists, and I am so close so often to just like pressing play for the next song to be like, X is coming off of DMX's It's Dark and the Hell is Hot, or for the next song to be like fucking Judgment Day by Method Man or some shit, and just like just see how all these like old Gen X goths like respond to it, and like, but it is such a thing. Like, I love hip hop growing up in the Bay Area, and like, I was born and raised out here in Richmond, California. And Richmond, California, it's like you talk to people from Oakland and they're like, oh shit, you're from Richmond. That's like, I don't fucking go to Richmond. It's like, it's not a, like, Richmond.
We don't go there.
Richmond is not getting gentrified anytime soon. Like, it's
good.
Yeah. It's, like, I couldn't really walk around much when I was a kid. Like, but I could find like some of the best fucking food that I'll ever find. Like, that's, but like, so with that being said, I like grew up with like, fucking like Too Short and E40 were like the fucking staples, and you know what I mean? And, and I just don't understand like the closed offness, like where people like, can't hear a certain song and vibe to it, and they just sit and they, and like,
it's like, why not? I just posted a story the other day about like putting on a childhood banger at the club. Imagine if DJs put on like Bill Nye the Science Guy stinger. Fuck yeah, bet your ass my ass will be going off to, so it's just, let's do something right now, Gray. Okay, and we'll follow up in a future podcast from here on out, because I'm interviewing other DJs this week. Let's challenge DJs or anyone listening for anything past the month of February. Once a month, dare you, Michelle and Auntie Grey, dare you to play one song, one hip hop song in your set list.
And
okay,
it could even be like something that fits. Like, it doesn't have to, you don't have to go from like fucking The Cure to, like, to Blow the Whistle. It could be Blow the Whistle. What's that would be like my fucking, that would be my jam if I heard that in a fucking club. But like, it could be something,
yes.
Like some of the artists I've been like highlighting or talking about, like Bob Villain, that dude is like so legit, and it's like you could easily put that in a goth playlist with like
absolutely
fucking Firestarter from Prodigy, and then
yes,
to Bob Villain, and boom, like it would work. You know what I mean? Like,
let's do it. So Jay, this week. I know in my area, you speak with DJ Barbie Singh. I'll be at one of her shows this weekend. I'm dare her to put a song in. DJ Derek Shadowplay, I'm calling you out. I'm also going to call out some SoCal DJs, DJ Effin. I know you're a banging ass DJ. If you're hearing this, I dare you to play something hip hop and record it and send it to me in gray. Okay?
Yes.
So, challenge accepted. So, we'll make sure that, and we'll make this a whole thing. And Gray, let's keep each other accountable, because let's see if, who else? Dusty from Vision Video and one of your goth dad fucking shows. I need you to talk about a hip hop artist.
Yeah.
Once a month. I dare you guys. And let's see what happens. Gray, we're on it.
Yeah.
So we'll hold it accountable. So let's go back to something that, has been on my mind for the past few days since we last talked. We were discussing one of your influences growing, as an artist is Screaming Jay Hawkins. Okay. Yes. This doesn't mean that the discussion on hip hop is over, but let's talk about some of the classic Black artists that people have forgotten about, because here's story time. Growing up, I was told, living with a white mom, Black dad, I wasn't listening to Black enough music in my environment. I went to junior high listening to Guns N' Roses thinking that I was cool. Woo, I got a, rude awakening, but that's where I started to learn about hip hop was in junior high. I started to learn, reading about different poets and whatnot, because growing up, you don't do that. Martin Luther King, Malcolm X was the only two Black civil rights leaders that I knew about. But no one was like me, Gray. No one was queer. I knew I was queer from an early age, okay? I'm mixed, biracial. That's a problem because I'm stuck in the middle, okay?
Yeah.
So I was listening to certain music undercover, not telling anyone else, and listening to another kind of music and playing, both roles, but always listening to the same music, reading poetry. So when we talk about now, oh, well, I was told I wasn't Black. I don't like Black people because I don't find Beyonce worthy of whatever the title of queen. I'm sorry. She's a privileged witch woman who, I don't want to ever talk about anyone's struggle, but I don't think she relates to the everyday Black person. Okay. And this isn't something to say for clout. Her music's fine. That's great. But can we also talk about, like, her influences are great too, because I love the fact that she's, doing a lot of pagan, putting a lot of pagan and goddess, divine into her music, which makes people who were fans of hers who would usually be closed off interested, I hope. Yeah. Call Beyonce Satan, please, somebody, please. Yeah. That's what I want to hear. That'll be a newsworthy article. But I do want to highlight the fact that, like, Screaming Jay Hawkins, I asked my dad, who's supposed to be, the Black martyr or patriarch, the Black person in my life that I was supposed to go to, we're estranged at this point. If he knew who Screaming Jay Hawkins was, he didn't.
No.
And then when I asked him if he knew who James Baldwin was, he didn't, because Black people weren't queer either. Yeah. And you had mentioned Little Richard, and I'm like, you're right. There Audre Lorde, poet. There were Black queers back in the day, and if Marsha P. Thompson leading the way for, we had talked about leading the way for Black trans women. Stop fucking gatekeeping and listen to the music and let music connect you.
Yeah.
Fucking rock and roll is Black. Everything that's beautiful and that you love as an artist is Black. What's wrong with recognizing that?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Your turn. Well, early influences.
It's funny that the thing about Beyonce, it kind of reminds me of, like, as like a trans person. Like, I love so many of the famous trans women that are in the light and everything, and people like MJ Rodriguez and Dominique Jackson and okay, let's be real, like half the cast of Pose, but what bothers me is when I see this kind of like erasing of trans women like me. Like, I'm not Dylan. You know what I mean? Like, and props to Dylan and everything Dylan does, but like, we're not all like skinny, tiny little white girls that like can afford surgery like after a few months. Like, we're fucking like, a lot of us are big brown women, and it's like, I would like to see more of that, like like Hunter Schafer in Euphoria, cool.
Yes,
I'm glad there's trans representation in there, but also I would like to see the person that doesn't look like Hunter Schafer from Euphoria. You know what I mean?
I had that same conversation in a Euphoria podcast last year.
Yeah.
Like,
it's even a line in our song, I Don't Care, which I will actually talk about that song for a minute here. I Don't Care. We have a song, and it's on our album In Mirrors, and one of the lines is, "Not every trans woman has to look like Jules," and I was very proud of that line. But that whole song was actually from kind of listening to a lot of X-Ray Spex, and like I was like.
oh, it was sense.
Yeah. So if anybody puts those things together, but anyway, because I know we're gonna get into that in a minute. But okay, so there's what you were saying about Beyonce, and then just like the goth scene in general. I kind of lost the train of thought. Screamin' Jay.
Yes.
And Screamin' Jay is like one of my like favorite like artists ever. Like I don't know, it was just like both his story and his voice and just the whole macabre of everything that he does. But it's like when you go back and you look up, he was like literally the first goth artist. He's the first artist that anybody ever labeled goth. And I'm fucking sick and tired of that credit going to Peter Murphy. Like, I love Bauhaus and I love Peter Murphy, but like, can we give credit where credit is due, you know?
And is it that hard? That is the question I want to ask. What is it going to take away from you? What are you so afraid of? These are what I want to ask the white, silent artists that, you know, I remember one of them who was a friend of mine goes, well, I just don't feel it's like my place, but can rally a fucking whole gang of vendors to do a raffle. What is it going to take? Oh, you're going to lose. What do you think? I just wonder what people are so afraid of losing. That's racist. Yeah. Just so you know, when you refuse to go, oh, I don't feel that I need to highlight this on my brand because it doesn't apply to me, it's racist. And, you know, I brought this up before. Stellar Corpses got completely kicked off social media in 2020 for defending and fighting against that motherfucker from the Misfits on his involvement with the Cowboys, because he was sitting there, a horror punk band or horror rockabilly band who may have lost some followers, but was considering his people of color fans in his audience.
Yeah,
that's something that I got upset with certain horror rock bands. It's racist when you're silent. And trust me, I can fucking hear you. If you can't acknowledge Black History Month or take 5 minutes or post something about a Black artist, you're being racist.
Yeah, and like it's so funny with the horror punk thing too, because like you motherfuckers wouldn't exist if not for like a Black dude. Yeah, the fucking from the Misfits. I think it sucks because like we were actually gonna like open for him. Like this was like 2015. We were gonna my old band was gonna open for Graves, and then they ended up having to cancel because I guess a bunch of their shit got stolen or something. But like yeah, I don't. That's such a weird thing too. Is you have this like all these conservative people that were in like the most non-conservative band, which is what most of punk rock is when it comes to those. Like when it comes to the Gen X or even like boomers of punk rock, like it's like you have people like the Sex Pistols who were just fucking trash, and like all of those fuckers are like, we're supporting Trump and shit now. So like, it's,
I don't, well, it's just like, I don't understand. It's like, and I won't speak on Morrissey fans, but like, really, I don't understand. We're not going to even go there. We're not going to even go with Morrissey.
Also, a little tidbit for people if they want to hear something that is kind of Morrissey-ish, but without the guilt. Listen to what came out before Morrissey, and that was Nick Cave's very first project, Boys Next Door, which nobody ever talks about it.
Ever.
Even Nick Cave doesn't fucking talk about it. He always talks about Birthday Party, but Boys Next Door is just it's fucking. They have one album called Door Door that is just beautiful. Every song on it is amazing. Anyway,
I was just listening. I actually was reading up and listened to it last year, and I should have made it a project. So let's take a pin on that one, and we'll do that one for a future. We'll do that one for. We'll talk about the things that no one's talking about.
Yeah, we'll talk about Australian artists in
another day, because they're so white. And they're going to get plenty of play.
Yeah.
But this is what the conversation needs to be. At times, it's not something to ignore just because things may seem a little quieter or things are going well. For a certain artist, or you're going well. Don't forget where your shit came from. And that leads me into where we were talking about previously about X-Ray Spex and Poly Styrene and the mooching poser artists that came from them. But let's talk about Poly as we continue.
Yeah.
I had just discovered Poly Styrene and X-Ray Spex, and I've heard the songs in my past, but never really paid attention to it. And this is another thing I love about music. It always keeps me learning, and I feel like I'm discovering something new when I come upon a band from the past where their members are long since passed, but they have this history. And here's a young woman in the 70s who reminds me so much of young Michelle with the braces and the outfit. And she's biracial. She was half Somali, half Scottish Irish. And here she is on stage being herself. And I did see her embody me. And the way I came about, and this is why I wanted to do this podcast with you, the way I came about finding out about X-Ray Spex and discovering the beauty and the treasure that Poly Styrene was I was looking for some under 18 or for 18 and all ages events for my vagina turd number 2 and his girlfriend, because I had all of my vagina turds up, and 4 of them out of the 4, 3 of them are still under 21. So they wanted to go do something cool, like, we want to go to a show or something with you. So it's like the middle of